What will Newcastle United do without Callum Wilson? I'm StattoJoe, you're a legend for watching this video, and today I'm going to dive into the stats and show you that as a Newcastle fan, you should be worried about the news that Callum Wilson will be out for the next 2 months. Now, for those who know me, I am a Newcastle fan as well, so I did worry when I heard this news, and this is why I'm diving in and taking a look. I will try and present this from an unbiased position now so that it doesn't come across as me saying we this and we that. So I'll try and keep as neutral as possible. So we look at the top goal scorers this season in the league. Mo Salah is miles ahead, 16. We've got a few in 13, Bamford in 12, Vardy in 11. But if you look at joint 8th, we have 10 goals for both Ollie Watkins and Callum Wilson. Now, this maybe isn't overly impressive to the neutral, but if you're a Newcastle fan, you know that Newcastle do not score many goals. If you've watched any matches that Newcastle have been in this season, bar maybe the last few, Newcastle are not an attacking team. They do not play expansive football. So for Callum Wilson to have so many goals just shows how great he's been for Newcastle this season. And what a great signing it was. What a great signing it was. Now we look at the 2020-21 stats for the Premier League. And the first thing we notice are Callum Wilson's figures. So this season in the Premier League, we have 10 goals and we have 5 assists. So we have 15 goal contributions overall this season. Newcastle have scored 24 goals in the league so far. So for every 8 goals that Newcastle score, Callum Wilson is involved in 5 of them. So that's 62.5% of Newcastle's goals come through Callum Wilson. So there's a heavy reliance there on Callum Wilson for the team. We look at the 3 other strikers, 3 other recognised strikers in Newcastle squad. So the first one we get is Joelinton, the 40 million flop. Now, I personally think the criticism of Joelinton is so harsh because it's not his fault that he cost £40 million. He didn't decide his transfer value, and I think that as a fan base, there needs to be a level of support. Yes, it's disappointing, but it's not his fault. He scored 1, he's assisted 2. The goal and one of the assists came in the same game, and I'll be looking at that a bit later on. So he's assisted 1. He's assisted 1 goal in the rest of the season, apart from the 1 game. Andy Carroll, who scored 1, which was against Leicester, which was his first goal for Newcastle in like 10 years. And he'd been at the club for a full year and a bit before he scored that goal. And then Dwight Gale, who's been injured, has scored 1 goal. Hasn't really played a lot. You see there only 102 minutes, so he hasn't really got a chance to play. So the worrying thing for a Newcastle fan here is that with the other 3 strikers, there have only been 3 goals and 2 assists. So only 5 goals have been created between the other 3 strikers. So Callum Wilson has tripled the work rate of the other 3 strikers. Now, granted, he has had more minutes in total, and often Newcastle play 1 striker and then Almiron and recently Joe Willock and Sir Maximan's come back. So yes, while Newcastle don't often play 2 strikers, there's a heavy dependence on them in the squad. Another thing we should look at when we're looking at stats is shot creating actions. Now this is really important because it gives you an idea of the impact that he has on attacks that don't lead to goals. So Newcastle surprisingly have had shots that haven't led to goals. Sometimes you'd think, they barely have any shots, so they only seem to score when they get a shot. But there have been times whenever Newcastle have had, especially recently in the Leeds game, in the Southampton game, Newcastle have had a decent number of chances. But what we can see with this is that this season he's had 47 shot creating actions. So that says there 2.33 per game, which is great from a Newcastle perspective. The other thing to note is 27 live passes have led to shot creating actions. So that means that more than half of the shot creating actions have come from open play. So a lot of the time you'll see that, obviously we include penalty kicks here. There's corners, throw-ins, and free kicks are included in that as well. But Callum Wilson has 27 shot creating actions from open play, which is actually really good. If you have that figure over 50%, then you're doing really well. But I want to analyse some of his play, because a lot of people talk about the three replacement strikers they have one main attribute. So Andy Carroll's very physical, wins headers, very strong. Joe Linton is actually very mobile. He's very quick, and I know he gets slated, but we'll look at this example in the Crystal Palace game, and you can see that he is a quick player. And then Dwight Gale is actually quite prolific in his scoring, so often it will take a very few shots to get a goal. What we see with Callum Wilson is that he has all three, but you can't play three strikers. Newcastle can't afford that, because they need to be defensively sound in order to get points from games. So if we look at these two examples, the first one I'm going to look at is Callum Wilson's header against Everton a couple of weeks ago. And then we're going to look at the Crystal Palace game and see maybe where Joe Linton needs to step up now, and really this is the time for him to do something. Because we need Newcastle fans, like as a club, and I'll say this as a we perspective, we need the goals. So in this example, what we're going to see is the first goal against Everton, which was just from a corner. So John Joe Shelby crosses the ball. Look at where this header's been taken from. He's about 13, 14 yards out, and he's facing this direction. So he has to swivel round and get the ball to go towards the net, like so, which isn't an easy skill. And Callum Wilson isn't a tall man, certainly not compared to Andy Carroll. And this is what I would call an Andy Carroll-esque header. I remember he scored one of these for England, and if you watch it in slow-mo, he almost headed the ball facing this direction, but like turned his head a bit after, and the ball went in. But you can see here the technique. He swivels on that, and there it's in the bottom corner. And that's, for a guy who's relatively small, that's something that you don't see all the time in any league, or in any team really. This is another example I wanted to show. This is Crystal Palace game in December, very, very late on. We're talking, I think it was 88th minute. It was 0-0. Crystal Palace had been pressing, and I think Joe Linton had been brought on to try and get a goal. And in this scenario, the clip didn't show the whole thing, but Joe Linton gets a throw in, plays a nice 1-2, and then makes a run from probably here, and he's run into here. So he's made that run, and you can see the space. Look at the space Callum Wilson's in. He's got so much space, very few defenders around him, and I'm screaming at the TV at this stage, play this ball and get it in to Callum Wilson's path, because Callum Wilson's so reliable. So, he has been. And he does. He puts that ball in, and then as cool as you like, boom, goal, no problem. So at that stage, I'm screaming because this is so late on in the game, and then Crystal Palace are being forced to press. So look at this. Look at the run Joe Linton's making here. So he's sprinting. This is talking about the mobility. He's racing down. Callum Wilson, who's in his own half, he's going to see the pass. He's going to see the pass and play this into Joe Linton. And that was the other thing that Callum Wilson provided, was assists. So at this stage, maybe play this a wee bit further, right here. So I know, having watched previous games, that Joe Linton isn't very confident on the ball. And I also know that when he shoots, he tends to make a mess of it. I think his confidence is totally shot. So in this scenario, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this defender directly in front of Joe Linton, and I'm saying there's not much space for him to get into. What I am saying is this massive gap here in which the ball can be played into Callum Wilson, there's Callum Wilson, he's making the run into here. So I'm thinking, right, Joe Linton's, the obvious thing for him to do is to play the ball, because there's a big gap. He's quick enough that he can get past the defender, and that'll be a goal. But this type of confidence is what Newcastle fans want to see now that Callum Wilson's out. He takes on the man, he turns, and while, yes, he doesn't get a clean connection, it still goes in. Now, that is what, as Newcastle fans, they want to see. And it's what I want to see as well. I want to see a striker performing well. But yeah, so there we are. The simple answer to the question at the start of this video is that the strikers on the bench need to step up, because otherwise Newcastle are facing probable relegation. It's just because they're 16th and Callum Wilson's been scoring all the goals. So without those goals, they'd probably be close to the bottom of the table. But anyway, what did you think? What do you think Newcastle need to do in order to score goals without Callum Wilson? And I know the answer will be score goals, but it's not as simple as that. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, give the video a like. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. There's plenty of football content. Also, if you enjoy rugby, there's a bit of rugby content for you there, so there'll be plenty. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a Six Nations roundup of the first week and a preview of game week 2. So if that sounds good, why not subscribe and join me?